as you see here, I have some pieces of audio equipment, and I want to make a quick comparison of the Chifi hobby, Chinese hi-fi audio hobby, and coffee grinders, because I feel like Chinese grinders, these coffee grinders, we are reaching Chifi status, and let me explain. So Chifi is Chinese hi-fi. It is basically this new trend or emergence of audio companies creating very high-performing audio products for very, very little. It's coming from China, which is like why you see Chinese hi-fi. And my most familiarity with Chifi is through the in-ear monitor and headphone space. So before I got into all this coffee stuff, I actually was a big audiophile. I still am a big audiophile, and I actually kickstarted a small business with one of my friends, and we sold a bunch of Chifi products, and we even ended up building our own IEM and a headphone, which we will eventually sell. If you were curious, follow my Instagram, and you will see that launched at some point. But basically, Chifi is very interesting in the fact that you have a lot of these companies, and they're all and they all make in-ear monitors, and they all kind of make in-ear monitors at various price points. Like, everybody is trying to hold the title of like best $20, $50, $100 IEM. And what ends up happening is you see companies produce IEM like literally every single 2 months. Like, there is a brand new product that comes out, and it's just very interesting as a consumer to be like buying into the hype. Like, I think what's really fun about Chifi is actually buying into the hype and like buying the next new hot IEM for like $10, $20 or $50, $100, right? And then we've seen the price point go up, up, and up, and we've seen the quality go up, up, up. But a common thing that really holds together is, like, generally speaking, there are, these are like very high performing in-ear monitors considering the price and considering the context, and the technology has really evolved in IEM world. The problem is that there is a lot of garbage. There are so many IEMs that come out every single month from all these companies, and people measure them, right? We try them out, and a lot of the times, like, some of them are just bad. Yeah, they're cheap and they're fun. Okay, great, you get to try this new tuning out. But like, sometimes there's just literally terrible marketing, like false marketing. Like, there are some companies saying, oh, we have a beryllium driver, a true berry driver, in like a $20 IEM, and there's like a lot of just garbage in the context of IEM, right? Maybe it's like Chinese marketing, right? Chinese marketing is some S tier, it's amazing. But now I feel like a lot of these trends, a lot of these things that we see in this Chifi hobby are coming to coffee grinder world. And I think it's very natural. I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting to be a part of this. And like, I want to talk about that. So coffee grinders, let's talk about it. So I think a great example of this is that you finally see Chinese manufacturers really, really pushing the barrier. Like, they are keeping everybody else on their toes. It's exactly like you see in Chifi, where Chifi really came along. If I use an example, I feel like, personally, I really like Moondrop. Moondrop recently, I would say, is one of these companies that in the past, like, 3 to 4 years, with things like the Blessing 2 and Starfields and all of that, they've really, really like kept everyone out on their toes. They just happen to have like waifus on their boxes. It's like, when you look at what is recommended in the audiophile world, you see people recommend Chifi products because like some of them are just genuinely good. Yes, there are so many bad products, and some of them are like, there's so many like one-off random Chifi products, and they're all probably made by the same people. But you have seen some companies really break through and really like push the barrier and keep all these other companies, mostly European companies, on their toes, European and American companies on their toes. And it's quite interesting, and I feel like the same thing has been finally happening with the coffee grinder world. These random OEMs from China come along and create something like the DF64 line of grinders. It comes along and it really disrupts the market, right? It really shows like, look, you can build some of these grinders for really, really cheap. Are they going to be good? Maybe, but like, you get high performance for the dollar, right? Like, that I think is a great example of DF64, like the OG DF64. Terrible, terrible workflow, but like, people really modded it. People really took that as a platform and was like, you know what, this is cheap. Like, in the context of 64mm grinders, this is a cheap grinder. I'm gonna throw some mods out, I'm gonna throw some time out, I'm gonna make it good, right? And now it's kind of really getting into like where I feel like the good parts of Chifi and also the bad parts of Chifi. Let's talk about the good. The good is that it is pushing the barrier. Is like, you need to actually put in some damn effort if you want to come out with a new grinder to actually compete with the Chinese stuff. Like, the Chinese stuff is like, you can solidly recommend it now. The bad parts of Chifi is that Now there is so much new stuff coming out every single 2-3 months, right? Look at the DF64s. Oh my god, man, there's like a new DF64 ABCDEFG coming out, and it's like, I don't know which one to buy anymore. You know, it's good for you as the consumer because it's like shows that these manufacturers are actually caring, they're taking some amount of feedback and they're improving things, or like maybe they're just blatantly copying what else is on other grinders, right? And they're sticking on there, right? But this poses a challenge for you because now it's like, you know, when do you actually buy one of these grinders? It's not something like Chifi where like, you know, some of these IEMs are like, you know, $50 to $100. Like, I don't really care too much if I'm trying to like, you know, upgrade or buy like a new one or try all these out and see what happens. It's more expensive than that, right? These coffee grinders are like, what, $300, $500. I feel like a lot of people, a lot of consumers now are like trying to figure out which one to buy. And it's kind of getting a little challenging. Now, another bad thing about Chifi, which I want to also discuss, which we are observing in the coffee grinder world, is just blatant clones, like literal clones of stuff. You know, and that's why I brought these beautiful, beautiful Campfire Andromedas out, right? Like, look at my 2 pairs of Campfire Andromedas. No, these are KZs, or I think one of these. Okay, this is the KZ-ZS6 and the KZ-ZS5, and they look very similar to the Campfire Andromeda, right? And they got hyped. People bought them, like, you know, I got 2 sets here because they were cheap. It's like, you know, they're gonna try to do the same configuration as what Campfire Audio was doing in the Andromeda. Is it gonna sound as good? Absolutely not, but hey, it's 10 times cheaper, so, you know, give it a shot, right? And that's like what we're seeing with things like these Lego Minis. Man, there are like 10 clones of this thing. There are clones of the P64. There are clones of everything. You know, especially if you're making grinders in China, that stuff's probably gonna get cloned. I feel like a lot of consumers in the audio space really got over the fact that these are they're products made in China, right? You know, I think Hi-Fi Man is a great example, like these Arias here, where it's like there are some fantastic manufacturers from China that make great audio products. And even things from Chifi, things that were associated with Chifi, like Moondrop or even Tin Audio, they've really like segmented themselves differently than something like KZ. And these are like legit recommendations, and the companies like actually make some pretty good products. I think this is not fully there yet when it comes to coffee grinder world. I think the closest finally to like something that you see like American, you know, you see like typical consumers can recommend that aren't like associated with like the Chinese like stigma is something like Time More. Like Time More is finally coming out with something that in my mind is like equivalent to something like Moondrop, where it's like, okay, this is legit, this is high performing, this is something I can recommend. That is like where I think Time More is getting there. But like a lot of these other Chinese companies, like I don't even know, right? Like who even makes a DF64, right? Like you can find like the DF64 branded on like a ton of things. Anyway, but that's my point is like, I think we're going to see more of these Chinese companies be legit, right? And I think like they're gonna learn how to really appeal to like some of these Western audiences. I still feel like there's a lot of stigma with something like the DF series of grinders where it is quite confusing, right? Like everyone always asks the question, which one, who do I buy the DF from, right? And like that is the thing where you need some companies like Time More to actually be pushing the barrier. And that's exactly what we've seen companies in Chifi world do. Let me kind of do a quick like also side note to this is even in both of these industries at the low end it still feels a little bit spray and pray where like there's going to be new random DF grinder and they're just going to try to improve stuff. They're going to add some things. Like just look at like the DF64 ENP. So they were like very massively like side graded or like very like I didn't know why I really didn't know why they made those grinders. And like it's kind of that spray and pray approach, which is like let's release like a ton of DFs and hopefully one of them is good, right? Like, oh, now we think the DF64V is good, or now there's like a new one coming out. Very similar to like a lot of these Chifi companies where it's like, you know, they've released so many of these IEMs, and in their product line, you're like, there's like maybe 1 or 2 that's really good, but there's like a ton of them. So I feel like, you know, we are seeing those parallels. And like even side note is like, you know, why would you spend more money, right? Like so even if in a Chinese company like, for example, Hi-Fi Man, which semi is you can associate with Chi-Fi, but not really. Like recent Chi-Fi is, they have multiple versions of their highest end headphones. Like, no, this isn't the highest end, this is just an Aria, but like this is the Aria V2. Then they come with the Aria Stealth, right? But like these changes feel so much more intentional. Same thing with something like your Cafetex and Weber's is that the iterations are much slower, but they feel much more intentional rather than like a spray and pray approach, which is what you see in generally like the lower end side of both the audio hobby and even the coffee grinder hobbies. So I really just wanted to talk about this because I thought this was just so interesting, where I finally see like so many parallels between my hobbies. I actually am probably going to make a video where I talk about like, things like imaging and details, very similar to like, how do grinders like present things. Like so many interesting parallels between these subjective hobbies, but more so like, what I want to talk about today is like, this is more of like a consumer purchasing thing and a thing that, you should just be aware of, because like I feel like this is the trend that I'm seeing is like, we're finally seeing these Chinese manufacturers really emerging, really pushing the bar, but at the same time, there's like a lot of stuff that happens and it's like, is that good and bad, right? Like that is just what I wanted to raise today, and I'm curious what you guys think. But yeah, if you're interested in the audio and coffee hobbies, I'm melding them together because I like both of them. They're both so fun, and yeah, thanks for spending the time to watch this video. See you guys around.